Good day, everyone. Today we're going to discuss the lesson 4 in Calculus 1, which is all about the derivative and the basic rules of differentiation. And let's start our discussion by defining what a derivative is. A derivative describes how a quantity changes with respect to another quantity. And geometrically, if we connect it to lines, it represents the slope of the tangent line to curve at a particular point. If you can recall in your senior high school, we have the slope given by m is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1, x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now, this particular expression, this is also the change in x. Can be represented by this, delta x. When you see delta in an equation, it means change. Change in x, sorry, this should be change in y. And this one is change in x. Okay? Because in an equation, for example, we have y is equal to f of x. Or to simplify, let's just say y is equal to x. If x changes, let's say there is a change in x, that change in x will also result a change in y. And if you get the ratio of these changes, the change in y over the change in x, this corresponds to the derivative. Okay. Now, this particular concept has many uses. For example, in physics, this can be used to represent velocity. And second derivative can be used to represent differentiation. And in real life, there are many things that changes. No? For example, a population changes with time. Your money in the bank changes with time. And other quantities. And using the principle of changes, we can apply the rules of differentiation and the derivatives in order to create the rules or the equations that governs those changes. Okay. Now, we also have this term differentiation. And differentiation is simply the process of finding the derivative of a function. Meaning, if you are asked to differentiate a function, you are being asked to obtain or derive the derivative of that function. Okay? And the notation used for the differentiation or the derivatives, first we have the Lagrange notation, then the Leibniz and Newtonian. This is the three types of notation that we use in calculus. But we mainly use Lagrange and Leibniz. Newtonian notation is used in physics, but in today's reference books, you can hardly, it's very rare to see this notation. Okay? Now, Newton and Leibniz actually, these are the two persons that are responsible for the invention of calculus. With Newton is actually credited for the differential calculus because he views calculus as the change in quantity with respect to another quantity. Basically, what I said earlier is based on Newton's idea. Leibniz, on the other hand, is credited with integral because Leibniz views calculus as the sum of small amounts to make a whole value. And that is actually the concept of integral calculus next sem. And Lagrange notation also is a mathematician that has a very vast amount of contribution to mathematics. And he uses this notation. In differential calculus, you can expect that we use this very often because it is easier to write. No? We read this as y prime. Y prime. And if we have the higher order derivatives, y double prime, y triple prime. But if the order of the derivative exceeds the third, we use this notation. A number enclosed by two parentheses. Take note, that is not an exponent. This is the order of the derivative. Okay, higher order derivatives meaning differentiating a function two or more times. Okay, so for example, you have x squared. If you derivative that, first derivative, we have 2x. The second derivative, 2. Third derivative, 0. Yeah, these are the higher order derivatives. The repeated process of differentiation. Anyway, we're going to have a separate topic for this. And actually, it is included in the midterms, but in prelim, we're going to focus on the algebraic functions, differentiating algebraic functions. The next type of notation in differential calculus is the Leibniz notation. And it uses this, dy dx. In this case, it is clearly the change in y and change in x is clearly represented as a ratio. And for the higher order derivatives, we have this, d squared y dx squared. And it might be confusing why on the numerator, the squared one is d, and the denominator, the square one is d dx. The reason behind that, class, is because we are taking the derivative of the first derivative with respect to x. Or this is the same as derivative ng dy, then dx dx. Yeah. That's why the squared one in the numerator is the d, and on the denominator, the squared one is the whole dx. Okay. Anyway, this is just a notation. It is just a way of writing symbols that represents a derivative. Most commonly, the notations that we're going to use in calculus is this, Lagrange, and differential equation most commonly used is dy dx. Either way, when you see this notation, all of this pertains to derivatives. Okay? Then, we have this equation, or the derivative as a rate of change. Suppose a function y is equal to fx describes the relationship between two variables. In this case, we have the independent variable and the dependent variable. And as I said earlier, if x changes by an amount, we represent that as delta x. Then y changes by another amount that is connected to the change in x. This is actually from del y is equal to function of x. If function of x changes, y also changes. Then this one is transposed to the other side. So we have f of x plus delta x plus, sorry, this should be minus y. And we know that y is f of x. Hence, the equation minus f of x. This one. Okay? Now, if we're going to take the average rate of change, we divide both sides by the change in x. Okay, the total. And if we limit this approaching 0, no, the change in x actually becomes the instantaneous change. The instantaneous change, rate of change is actually, for example, you have a parabola. The average is the change, all of these changes. For example, x changes by 1, y changes by 1, x changes by 2, y changes by 4. So if we try to get the average of all of that, and we limit the change of x as 0, we're actually taking a point on the parabola. This is called as the instantaneous rate of change. Okay? Therefore, from this particular statement, we can derive the definition of the derivative as a limit. When you see on references or articles in the internet, derivative as a limit, you can see this equation, this one. Sometimes they use h instead of delta x. Okay, but it still pertains to the derivative of a function, taking the limit of delta x as it approaches 0. Okay? Now let's apply this concept in some example here. Okay, we are asked to find the derivative of 2x squared plus 1 with respect to x. So using the derivative as a rate of change, if x change by a certain amount, and we represent that as delta x squared, 1 is a constant, so it will not be affected, still 1. That change in x will correspond to a change in y. And transposing y to the other side and expanding this quadratic term. So we have x squared plus 2x delta x plus delta x squared plus 1 minus y. We transpose y from the left side. Therefore, we have delta y is equal to 2x squared plus 4x delta x plus 2 delta x squared plus 1. And then we know that y is this. We can substitute 2x squared plus 1. Can replace y with that expression, so that the right hand side is represented by x only. This is delta. This is delta also. Okay? Then we simplify the expression. We have delta y is equal to 2x squared plus 4x delta x plus 2 delta x squared plus 1, and distribute the negative signs, minus 2x squared minus 1. And as you can see, we can cancel out the like terms. In this case, we have 2x squared and 1, positive 1 and negative 1. Okay, what remains is for x delta x plus 2 delta x squared. And to get the average rate of change, just like what is stated here, we divide both sides by delta x. Okay, therefore we have delta y over delta x is equal to 4x, actually the delta x cancels out here. So we only have 4x. Then delta x cancels 1 delta x from 2 delta x squared. So we only have delta x. Okay. Now this is the average rate of change. To get the derivative, we need to take the limit of delta y over delta x as delta x approaches 0. This one is the instantaneous rate of change or the derivative of the function. Okay, therefore, the dy dx is equals the limit of, in this case, what remains is 4x plus delta x, and we're taking the limit of delta x as it approaches 0. And by the rules of limit, we just need to substitute delta x there as 0. So we have 4x plus 0. We have dy dx. Therefore, the dy dx, or the derivative of function, is 4x. Yeah. Now I know that most of you have the idea of how to get the derivative of this easily. Okay, you just use the power rule. You multiply the exponent to the coefficient and then subtract 1 from the coefficient. From the exponent, rather. And you will arrive with the same answer for x. The derivative of 1 is 0 because 1 is a constant. But I just want to show you how the, let's say, old school calculus solves for derivative. Now we have the rules that we can use, and it is actually it is easier because we just need to plug in the values to the formulas, then we can get the derivative. But once that you see this in the references, reference books, and other articles, no, at least you have the idea of how derivatives are taken as a rate of change, because all of the formulas that you're going to use is based on this concept actually. The power rule, the chain rule, the quotient rule, all of those formulas came from this particular concept. But don't worry, I just showed you this process because in electrical engineering board exam, sometimes there are questions that involves this. Specifically this one, derivative as a limit. Question, for example, which of the following equation represent derivative as a limit? So this will be the uh, equation in question. Okay, but as I said, I will not require you to use this method because aside from its being tedious, very hard to apply, and very challenging, we can just use the basic rules of differentiation, which is a more practical and efficient way of finding derivatives. And those basic rules, I included here the first 4, but later on we have the product rule, chain rule, quotient rule. Those are also included in the basic rules of differentiation. But for now, let's focus on the first 4. The first one is the constant rule. Constant rule states that any constant, when applied or differentiated, the answer is always 0. Hence, the derivative of constant is always 0. For example, 5. 5 is a constant, derivative of that is 0. Derivative of pi is also a constant, also 0. The principle behind this is because constant doesn't change. It remains or it stays the same. Therefore, the rate of change of constant is zero. It is never changing. That's why the derivative of constant is zero. The next one is the constant multiple rule. The constant multiple rule is applicable to functions wherein the given function is multiplied to a certain constant. C here is a constant, this one. Okay, for example, we have 4 cosine x. 4 is a constant. We can take that out of the derivative because it will not be affected by differentiation. Because again, constant doesn't change. Therefore, we can just take the constant out and then derivative the function or differentiate the function. This case, the cosine x. Then the third one is the sum and difference rule. If there are functions that are added and subtracted, okay? Take note ha, this only applies to functions that are a sum or difference. Do not apply this to functions that are multiplied to each other. That is the common mistake I see from students in my past calculus classes. Okay? It's only applied if the operation is plus or minus. Okay? Just like this one, we have 3x squared, a function, algebraic function. This one is exponential. This is exponential function. And this one is logarithmic function. Okay? It can also be applied if, for example, all is an algebraic function. Just like this one. Actually, let's say we have this. This is considered as a single function. But we can use the sum and difference rule here. We can differentiate these terms separately and then add the results. Okay? For example, if this is negative, also applicable, we can differentiate separately using sum and difference rule. And lastly, we have the power rule. Okay? Power rule is applicable to functions that has exponents. That have exponents, just like this one, derivative of x raised to n. Now, if the base or the variable is only in terms of x, meaning the variable used is only x, the formula we use is just nx raised to n minus 1. And here is the exponent. Okay, but sometimes there are functions, whole functions. For example, we have 3x squared plus 1 raised to 3. Okay? This is a function raised to 3. And in this case, the first formula cannot be applied. We have to consider this is actually a chain rule, simplified into a power rule. U is a function of x. That is the difference between these two. The first one is applied only if the variable is just x. The second one is used if the term being raised to a power is a whole function, just like this one. Okay? But actually, in some cases, for example, if the given is only x squared plus 1, then squared, it is easier to expand this. You can expand and apply sum in difference rule. Difference rule. This one, and also the power rule. But in some cases, for example, you have raised to 9. Okay. How would you expand that? You need to expand that 9 times, which is very, very time consuming. Okay? And in that particular cases, it is easier to use the second formula. Okay, so we have an example here. Derivative of x raised to 4. N is 4. So we just follow the formula. This is n. Then yung x, because the variable used is only x. And then this one is n minus 1. Okay? For those who took STEM in senior high, I know that you already know this. Okay? It's just the easiest way actually. For example, you have 4x cubed. The easiest way of using power rule is just multiply the exponent to the coefficient and then subtract 1 from the exponent. So this is 12x. 3 minus 1 is squared. That is the easier way. Now, as I said earlier, if the expression being raised to a power is another function, just like this one, sine squared x. This is actually sine x raised to 2 or sine x squared. The sine is being raised twice in this case. And the important thing here, class, actually, the first part of the formula is the same with x. But we need to multiply the derivative of the inside function, which is the du dx. Okay? So, if you have this type of example, you need to get the derivative of the inside function also. Then multiply it to the nu raised to n minus 1. Okay? So, let's apply these concepts to example for you to see how these rules are applied to a differentiation problems. Okay? So, I prepared 10 examples and we're going to answer one by one. First one, we have this. Okay, be wary of the instruction also because sometimes instruction is kind of tricky. Sometimes they respect to y. No? But don't worry, I will not give you that kind of example here. But for electrical engineering students, sometimes in our licensure examination, there are tricky questions like that wherein the independent variable becomes y. And that's the case, you need to apply the implicit differentiation. Okay, but don't worry, I will not give those kind of problems. Okay, so let's answer number 1. We have a sum of algebraic terms here. Y is equal to 2x cubed plus x squared minus 5x. And using the sum indifference rule, we can take the derivative of each one. The first one, we have a 2 as a constant. Using constant multiple rule, second one, we can take the constant out of the derivative and then just differentiate the other term, which is x cubed over the respect to x. Take note, it only works for constant terms. Okay? Do not use that if, for example, you have x cubed y. Never do this because this is wrong. Okay? Constant multiple rule only applies if the coefficient is a constant. So in this case, coefficient is 2 constant. This is wrong. Do not do that. Okay. So let's continue. Then, separately, we can differentiate squared with respect to x. And then another 5 here is a constant derivative of x over dx. And the derivative of 7. The derivative of 7, that is constant. No? This is 0 actually. Derivative of constant is 0. Okay? Let's use a thicker version. Then, this should be y prime. Therefore, y prime is equal to 2. Applying the product rule. N here is 3, and here is 2. This one, dx over dx is 1. Derivative of x with respect to x is 1. Okay? Applying the power rule here, n is 3. X raised to n minus 1, so 3 minus 1. I'm showing you the step-by-step process first, but later on in the problem, we're going to use the easier method, wherein we just multiply this and minus 1 to the exponent. Okay? And then we have derivative of x squared is n is 2, x raised to 2 minus 1. So this one, 5 times 1 is 5. This one is 0. Therefore, we have 3 times 2, 6x squared plus 2x minus 5. Okay? This is the answer. Don't worry, I will not require you to show the step-by-step process if we're dealing with the easier functions just like this one. You can just use the technique that I mentioned earlier. Just multiply this. 3 times 2, 6. And then subtract 1 from the exponent. Similar here. The coefficient of this one, of x squared is 1. It's just hidden. We don't write when the coefficient is just 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay. Next, we have example number 2. So in this example, we have a term wherein the variable is on the denominator. Okay. Now, most of the time, when we say fractions, just this one, just like this one, the first rule that comes into mind is the quotient rule. Because again, this is actually quotient. But some cases, if the variable is only in terms of x, just like this one, we have x in the x squared on the denominator. We can just apply the law of exponent, wherein we take the variables on the denominator, put it on the numerator, but reverse the sign of the exponent. Okay. It's like this one. So x here has an exponent of 1. If we can move that to the numerator provided that you reverse the sign of the exponent. Okay? Therefore, we have this one. Negative 2x raised to negative 1. Okay? Then, the next one is we have 1 on the numerator and 2x squared on the denominator. Okay, the common mistake that I see students do when there are terms just like this one is that they also include 2 when they take the denominator or when they move the denominator and put them on the numerator. So that is wrong. Okay? When you are rewriting the terms so that every variable is in the numerator, you only take the variable and the exponent. Okay? And you leave the constant on the denominator. So in this case, we only put x squared rather, on the numerator, but the sign should be reversed. So in this case, we have x raised to negative 2. Okay. Now, we can apply the power rule. So we have x squared. Derivative of that is just 2x. And then negative 1 times negative 2. So we have positive 2. Okay. Multiply this and then subtract 1 from the exponent. Then this one we have negative 2. Then 1/2 there is a constant actually. That is 1/2. And then you multiply negative 2 to 1/2. Then x raised to negative 2 and subtract 1 from the exponent. Okay? Therefore, y prime is 2x plus 2x raised to negative 2 plus, sorry, this one should be negative because negative times positive here is negative. 2 will cancel out. Then we only have minus x raised to negative 3. And now that the differentiation is done, we can return the variables with negative exponents, rewrite that as a fraction again. Okay? So the exponent becomes positive again. That is the solution for number 2. Simplified form. Okay? Just be wary of this one. No? There are problems or terms wherein the variable in the denominator has a coefficient. When you move the term, you only include the variable and exponent. You leave the coefficient on the denominator. Okay? One of the common mistakes. Now, what if you have radicals? Just like this one. How do you solve this? Again, this is solvable by power rule. Okay? And I think I've already mentioned it to you that if you have a radical term that is a fractional exponent, okay? Just a basis, if we have this is b. This translates to x raised to b over a. The denominator of the exponent is the root of the radical. And the numerator of the exponent is the exponent of the term inside the radical. Okay? So in this particular example, we can rewrite the square root of x as x raised to 1/2. Then, yung x, cube root of x can be rewritten as x raised to 1/3. And the last term can be rewritten as 2 over x raised to 1/2. So again, we have a single x term here on the denominator. In order to apply the power formula, we need to transfer the denominator to the numerator, provided that you reverse the exponent, the sign of the exponent rather. Therefore, we have 2x raised to negative 1/2. Okay? And then just apply power formula. So we have 2 times 1/2, then x, then we subtract 1 from 1/2. Okay, next one we have 3 times n is 1/3. Then we subtract 1 from 1/3. And lastly, we have 2 times negative 1/2, and we subtract 1 from negative 1/2. Okay, simplify, we have, so this cancels out, this one also, and then this one. Okay, what remains is x raised to 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2, minus 1/3 minus 1 is negative 2/3. Then we have negative times positive, negative also. Negative 1/2 minus 1 is negative 3/2. And as you can see, all of these terms have negative exponents. To simplify, we need to put that on the denominator. So we have x raised to 1/2 minus 1 over x raised to 2/3 minus 1 over x raised to 3/2. Then lastly, just write this as radicals. So 1 over x raised to 1/2 is square root of x minus 1 over, again, the denominator of the exponent is the root. So that is cube root of x squared. The numerator is the exponent. Then minus 1 over x raised to 3/2. Again, the root is the denominator. So square root. That's only the square root of x cubed. Okay. So that's how you solve derivatives that contains radicals. Then, what if there is a constant also inside the radical, just like this one? Okay. In the previous example, inside the radical, we only have x's here. But this time, the x has coefficient. And they are all inside the radical sign. Okay? So to solve this, actually, some books, they use chain rule for this. But you can bypass that using the law of indices. You can just separate square root of 2 and square root of x. Then, similarly here, separate square root of 3 and square root of x. Okay? So if you want to simplify more, you can rationalize these terms. Multiply this one square root of 2 over 2 and this one square root of 3 over 3. But we can proceed to differentiation without doing that. Okay, we can just rationalize at the end of the solution. Because the square root of 2 and square root of 3 are all constants. So we can separate 4 is also a constant. Then square root of 2. And since x is on the denominator, we can take we can move that to the numerator, but to show you the complete process, I'll just first rewrite the radical as a fraction. Then we have 6 over square root of 3 multiplied to 1 over x raised to 1/2 also. Then to apply power rule, okay, we need to put the x raised to 1/2 to the numerator, but reverse the sign. This one we have 6 over square root of 3 times x raised to negative 1/2 again. Okay, now we have these terms. We can just use power rule. So 4 over square root of 2 will retain times n. So we have negative 1 half. Then subtract 1 from the negative 1 half. This one we have 6 over square root of 3. Then multiply again to negative 1 half because that is the exponent. They have the same exponent. Then subtract 1 again from negative 1 half. Next, simplify. Now this terms cancels out 4 and 2. So we have a remaining 2 in the numerator. 6 and 2 also cancels out. Then we have 3 remaining on the numerator. Therefore, we have 2 over square root of 2 times x raised to negative 3 halves. Okay? Plus, we have 3 over square root of 3 x raised to negative 3 halves also. And to simplify, we can put the negative, the excess with the negative exponents. We can put that in the denominator again. Then the sign will become positive, x raised to 3 halves. And then 3 over square root of 3 times x raised to 3 halves also. And then lastly, we just need to rewrite as radicals 2 over square root of 2 times square root of, we have a similar term for x raised to 3 halves in the previous example. This one, that is just square root of x cubed. Square root of x cubed. Then plus 3 over square root of 3. So that is again square root of x cubed. And then law of indices, since both of these terms and these terms are inside square root, we can combine them into a single square root. So we have square root of 2x cubed plus 3 over square root of 3x cubed. Okay? So that's the answer for example number 4. This one. Okay. Now, what if you have a quotient, but there's only a single term on the denominator? Okay? Now, in this type of problem, we can separate the fractions. Okay? There are similar problems like this one on last topics where we separate, for example, 3x squared, x squared minus 2x over x squared plus 1 over x squared. Okay? Then we can cancel out the cancelable terms. So this time we have x squared, and then x squared. Now the function becomes, the first term becomes 3 only. Second term becomes 2 over x. Then the third one is 1 over x squared. So again, we have x terms on the denominator. To apply product rule, we need to put that into the numerator. So we have 2x raised to negative 1 plus x raised to negative 2. Then we can just apply power rule. Derivative of 3 is 0, constant. This one is 2 times negative 1, then subtract negative 1 from the numerator, from the exponent. Then this one is negative 2. Then x raised to negative 2 minus 1. Therefore, we have negative times negative, this becomes positive 2. X raised to negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. Then, this is negative again. X raised to negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. Therefore, we have y prime is equal to 2 over x squared minus 2 over x cubed. Okay? That's how you answer number 5. Now, number 6 is the same actually, but the numerator, the x term in the numerator has a coefficient of 3. But the process of solving is still the same. You need to separate over 3x minus 5x over x minus 4 over 3x. Then cancel out the cancelable terms. So x and x squared. Here we can cancel x. Then the function becomes this is only 2/3. Then there will be an x that remains on the numerator minus this one is just negative 5. Then the last one is 4 over 3x. So you can notice here, I separated x should be on the denominator. 4 over 3x. Ayan. And as you can notice, I already separated the constants on the first term, the 2/3. Okay? So that when we apply the power rule, and actually, we don't need to apply power rule here. It's just x. The derivative of x is just 1. Now, the third term, we have a problem. We can just derive that or differentiate that directly because we still need to put the x term on the numerator. But the numerator, the exponent becomes x raised to negative 1. Okay? Now we can differentiate. Again, as I said earlier, the derivative of x is just 1. 2/3 will not be affected. Derivative of 5, that is 0, that is constant. This one, we have 4/3 times n, and natin is negative 1. Then we subtract 1 from the exponent. Therefore, the derivative is 2/3. Negative times negative, this becomes positive 4/3 x raised to negative 2. Now, since we have a negative exponent on the second term, we can just bring that down to the denominator to simplify. So we have 2/3 plus 4 over 3x squared. This will be the answer to example number 6. Okay. Now, what if the term on the denominator is a radical? Okay, we have two cases again here. Radical, and the second one, it has a constant inside the radical. So let's answer this. Again, the same process applies, just like examples 5 and 6. we need to separate the terms. So we have x squared over square root of x minus 3x over square root of x. And then we rewrite the radicals as fractions, fractional exponents. Let me just rewrite this so it can fit here. So we have x squared over x raised to 1/2 minus 3x over x raised to 1/2. Okay. Now, unlike the previous examples where we can see directly which term we can cancel, in this example, since the exponents involves fraction, we need to apply the law of exponents. Okay, specifically the one that deals with quotients. If you have x raised to m over x raised to n, it can be simplified, law of exponent, we minus or we subtract the exponents. So that is also applicable here. Therefore, we have y. The 3x will not be affected on the second term. So on the first term, we have x squared. And then we subtract the denominator 1/2. The second term, 3 will not be affected. But x, the coefficient of the numerator is 1. Then we subtract the 1/2 from the denominator. Therefore, x raised to 2 minus 1/2 is 3/2. And then 1 minus 1/2 is 1/2. Okay? Now we have this form that is directly solvable by power rule. Okay? So again, just have the exponent, 3/2. X raised to, we subtract 3/2, we subtract 1 from 3/2. Then we have 3 times, 3 is constant, n is 1/2. Then we subtract again 1/2 from the, 1 from the 1/2. And lastly, we have, just simplify. Okay, we have 3/2. X raised to 3/2 minus 1 is 1/2. Plus, this one is 3/2 also. 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2. So that negative 1/2, we can put that on the denominator. So we have 3 over 2 x raised to 1/2. Since the exponent of this one is negative, that's why we move that to the denominator. Then finally, we have, just need to rewrite that as a radical. Say radical. So we have 3/2 square root of x plus 3 over 2 square root of x. This is example number 7, the answer. Okay, the next one is there's a constant inside the radical. So the solution is the same. Okay, separate the fractions, minus 1 over the square root of 2x. But similar to the previous examples, it's like this one, example number 4. Since we have a constant inside the radical, we can separate that using the law of indices. Let me just rewrite this. 2x, and then separate 3 over square root of 2. Then, let me also separate the variables. So we have x over square root of x. I'll just rewrite this as 1/2. Minus 1 over square root of 2. And then again, square root of x. That is x raised to 1/2. Okay. Now we need to move the terms. The first one, we need to apply power, law of exponent rather. First term, so we have 3 over square root of 2, and then x raised to 1 minus 1/2. So I'll just write that directly. 1 minus 1/2 is 1/2. This one, just like what we did here. Exponent of this is 1 minus 1/2. So 1/2. Minus the second one, it does not have an x term on the numerator. I just need to put or move the denominator to the numerator and reverse the exponent. Okay, now this one is solvable by power rule. 3 over square root of 2 is constant. Then multiply by 1/2. X raised to 1/2. We subtract 1 from that. 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2. Then 1 over square root of 2. Again, multiply by negative 1 over 2. Then we subtract 1 from 1/2. Negative 1/2 minus 1 is negative 3/2. Then simplify. Now we have 3 over 2 square root of 2. Then x raised to negative 1/2, we can put that here in the denominator. Or 1/2 can be rewritten as square root of 1/2. So just rewrite this as, 1/2 square root. So we have square root of x on the denominator. Then negative times negative, we have positive 1 over square root of 2 over square root of 2 rather. 2 square root of 2 pala. Okay? And then we have 3/2 again, negative 3/2. So that is square root of x cubed. And we move that on the denominator because the exponent is negative. And then lastly, we just combine all those terms that have the same roots. So in this case, 2n square root of x, can combine that inside a single radical. So square root of 2x plus this one square root of 2 and x cubed. We can combine that also. 2 square root of 2x cubed. This is the answer to example number 8. Okay, now we have already solved 8 examples, but if you can notice, we only apply the first formula for power rule. We only apply this. We only apply with x raised to n. What if the given is u raised to n? So that's what we're going to solve in example number 9. And you can expect that this one is significantly harder from the past 8 examples. But rather, if you can just follow the formula, there's no need to worry about solving this. We have the formula. Okay? Now, in this particular case, example number 9, if you want, you can expand the term. But that would be very time consuming. You're going to raise that into 4. So you need to multiply 4 times. You need to do this. And I assure you, when you do this, it will take a lot of time. Therefore, we can just use the second formula. The second formula is just, let me erase that first. I'll write the formula here again. The derivative of u raised to n with respect to x is n times u raised to n minus 1. Then we need to get the derivative of the inside function and multiply that to d. Okay, provided that u is a function of x. Okay, so this one, we have u. Our u here is 4x squared minus 2. And since we need du dx, we need to differentiate this also. The derivative of this is 2 times 4, 8. Then subtract 1. So we only have 8x as the derivative. Derivative of negative 2 is constant. Okay? And then to get y prime or the derivative of this, just follow the formula. N is 4. Then u is 4x squared. This one. Minus 2. Then we have n minus 1. So 4 minus 1. And then we're going to multiply du dx. Du dx is 8x. Now, the terms that we can combine here is 4 only and 8. We cannot multiply this 2 inside the quantity because it has an exponent of 3. If you want to combine all of this, you need to expand 4x squared minus 2 cubed. But that is not required because, take note, if we simplify, meaning we just need to write the equation in a easier way. So if you want to expand this, that will be doing the opposite of simple. Okay? Therefore, we can just multiply 8x and 4, so that is 32x. And write this as is, then raised to 3. And this answer is acceptable. You don't need to expand this. Okay. Then lastly, what if we have radical again? Okay, similarly, you can just rewrite this as y is equal to 3x squared plus 2 raised to 1 half. Okay, now here, I forgot to write here. We should have n here also. N is 4. So from this, our n, the exponent is 1 half. U is 3x squared plus 2. And the derivative of that is 6x. Derivative of 2 is 0. So yeah, 6x only. And then to get the derivative, y prime, just need to follow the formula again. So we have n is 1 half times u. U is 3x squared plus 2. Then we subtract 1 from 1 half. 1 half minus 1 times the derivative, the du dx. So times 6x. Okay, therefore, we can cancel 6 and 1 half. There will be a remaining 3 on the numerator. So 3x. Then we have 3x squared plus 1 half. 1 half minus 1 is negative 1 half. Okay, and again, we have here a negative exponent. We can bring that down to the denominator. We just need to reverse the exponent. So negative 1 half, the exponent becomes positive. And lastly, we have a fractional exponent. Just rewrite that as a radical. Square root of 3x plus 2. This is the answer to example number 10. Okay, so that's how you solve the derivatives of different functions. In this case, algebraic functions only. because that's the focus of our prelims. Then in midterms, we're going to apply these examples to algebraic, trigonometric, exponential, logarithmic, and so on. But uh, for prelim, don't worry, you just need to solve algebraic equations or functions only. Okay? Now, for your assignment, answer this, please. You have 6. Uh, this is 5 points each. Okay? And the deadline for this is on 24, August 24 for those sections who have classes on Monday. And to those who have schedules on Tuesday, automatically the deadline is on Tuesday. Okay? So that's our discussion for basic rules of differentiation and how derivatives is taken. And if you have any question, clarification, and also if you notice there's something wrong with the computation, you can just send a message on our GC so we can clarify it. Thank you for listening and have a good day.